Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with JoyB. This platform is sponsored by Lady J Media, Butterfly Entertainment. In fact, I am in the LJM studio right now. I'm going to be talking with Mr. Mark Samuel and Pastor Shannon Wright. Tonight's conversation is so vital. Baltimore City Public Schools are in crises. We hear the stories on a daily basis. 12th graders who are reading on very low grade levels, adults who come back after years and years and talk about how they graduated from school XYZ and they cannot read. So we're going to have a conversation tonight. Let's talk. Little Johnny can't read. Who is responsible? So let me make a disclosure. We are not here to bash any parents of any school. We're here to have a dialogue and possibly spark some interest in supporting our kids in these Baltimore city schools. So we'll start with you, Mark. Pastor Shannon will be in a couple of minutes. So as you see it, what issues, are going on in Baltimore City Public Schools? Talk about from your standpoint, what's going on in Baltimore City Public Schools, Mark?
Well, I want to give a little about my background. I'm a local photographer and
Okay.
Baltimore native, and I had an opportunity in middle school to go away to boarding school. We didn't, so I went away to boarding school because of this issue, and that was many years ago. So a lot of things that I'm concerned about, like you mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
students not reading on a grade level that they need to be on, especially, you know, both the boys and the girls, especially the boys, and like the boys are even left even further behind. So,
Right.
and then it becomes, the prison, school to prison pipeline. And so my concern is we're not equipping our young people with the necessary tools they need to be successful. We have a vibrant
That's
city, a
right.
lot of amazing things going on in this city, but we're not able to make that investment that we need to into our youth. And so
Right. Because,
those things that I'm concerned about.
okay. So, are you in agreement that Baltimore city schools are not being funded properly the way they should? So that we do, Baltimore city schools, laptops, new books. I hear it all the time that, the city schools do not have the equipment that they need. And what I'm hearing now is it's cold in school. So we have students who are sitting there wearing coats. Lots of times we have students who are coming into school and they're hungry, So there are some issues that, I want to talk about a little bit tonight. So as far as you are concerned, tell me, um, are we making parents accountable? We're not going to bash any parents. I'm sure you remember the young man who missed, gosh, a huge amount of time from school, and all of a sudden they tell his mom, we're not going to let this young man advance to the next grade. Mom gets upset, and then she says, well, you know I had X number of jobs and I'm working, and I did not know that he was not in school. Um, I want to get your thoughts on that, and I'm going to get Pastor Shannon's thoughts on that. Now, I have a adult son. When my son was at Carver High School, if my son stayed home from school, I knew about that. I think we have to make parents accountable for what these kids are learning or they're not learning in school. We can talk about teachers all we want, but as parents, we have to be accountable for our kids and their entire learning process from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. Talk about that. Give me your thoughts on that.
I agree. Because the learning process, well, it's what we say, the learning starts at home. So even before
Right.
your child goes to school, there's a lot of developmental things that you can do. And as parents, I know a lot of parents are struggling trying to make ends meet, and then this COVID, climate, that even adds
Mm-hmm.
another layer of stress, of difficulty. But I agree. I think parents need to be accountable, and also the community has to do a good a better job at getting resources to those parents.
Absolutely.
Well.
I have a scenario, and I'm going to ask you and Pastor Shannon to help me out with that. So what I'm thinking is, okay, now if a child misses now, and I know they have these systems now, if a child misses a day of school, I think there is like an automatic attendance phone call that you get that says Sally wasn't in school today. So it lets that parent know if you have a 10th, 11th, or 12th grader and they're not in school, that, the parent is going to get that phone call. And then if it were me, I would say, hey, why weren't you at school today? What's going on if I didn't allow that child to stay home. But you make a very valid point when you talk about, there's stressors. We're trying to maneuver in this COVID environment. A lot of parents, don't want their kids at school right now just because, they want their kids to do online school. I think it's a good thing that schools are opening back up and, these kids are in school because I think online learning presents a certain level of challenges for some kids. Some kids do well online. Some school kids do not do well online. They do better like in an in-person environment. But what I think is happening is that, and I saw like something on Fox 45. This young lady came forth. I'm not sure what school she graduated from, but she said that she was pushed along through school and she cannot read. She can't read and write. So how do you get from kindergarten, pre-K through 12th grade without knowing how to read? Like, I wonder, what, and I hear the stats on Patterson. I just don't believe them. I believe that there are smart, intelligent kids at Patterson High School. So they're saying that now 77%, that's a large percentage. And I just don't believe, come on in. Here's Pastor Shannon. We're going to get her in on this conversation.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I think that these stats that they're giving, talk about that. Did you hear about, the fact that they're saying 77% of 12th graders at Patterson High School cannot read? So, yeah, go ahead, Pastor. Go ahead. Okay. That's startling to me.
It should be, but it's not. Baltimore public school system has been broken for some time.
Mm-hmm.
We've got generations of folks that were allowed to move forward through social promotion that do not have the skill set to be able to get a job, to be able to support themselves. And for me, if it was a different industry, I could kind of see it a little bit differently.
Okay.
So sometimes in business, folks will accept payment for things that they don't exactly do to the best of their ability. But I think when it comes to things like education, we have a problem with economics in the city, okay? We have companies that are moving out, jobs that are leaving, all those sorts of things. We're in a place where technology is changing, so there are different skill sets. So to me, when you get that much money as a school system, you're gonna look at what the economic opportunities are going to be based on where children are in elementary school by the time they get through, middle school by the time they get through, high school by the time they get through.
Okay.
There's not one set, elementary, middle, or high school, where the Board of Education in Baltimore City is preparing students to meet the needs of the finances and of their own individual finances or of the employment marketplace when those children get out of school.
Wow.
They are just not meeting the need.
So you believe the stats from Patterson? Isn't that astronomical?
So quite
Pastor
honestly,
Shannon? Yeah.
anybody that wanted to find out for themselves could right now Google Maryland State School Report Card.
Okay.
There's an actual website that grades every school.
Wow.
Every school.
I'm gonna check out my granddaughter's school.
If you look, it'll tell you if the school is passing or not.
Okay.
If they're deficient in what areas, it will tell you and by what percentage. It will tell you if there's an improvement plan. It will tell you if they're meeting that plan or not. Now the problem is, There are very few instances where you get control of that kind of money, and unless you are truly grounded in your faith, your character, and your morals, to be able to do the right thing.
Right.
If
right.
you know that you can still get that money and maybe not do as much of the right thing, unfortunately, human nature, folks tend to do that.
Absolutely.
So I say that to say this. When you look at a couple months back, the big story of the ghost students
Yes.
at the high school.
Yes.
Now, for those of you that don't understand that, what the importance of it is this camera right here?
Yes.
I'm talking
absolutely.
to all y'all right now.
Please do.
If there's one school that has 100 students that are not there, and let's round way down for easy math. Let's say that school gets $10,000 a year per student. Multiply that 10,000 times 100. It's $1 million.
Absolutely.
Now, if a student is supposed to be in high school for 4 years, that's $4 million in what should be the lifespan of a high school career for a student.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, the actual amount of money that the city gets per student is closer to $17,000, and the amount of ghost students was actually closer to 150. So do the math. How much of that $4 million, rounding down, right, could have paid for heating and air conditioning in school buildings that don't have that?
Yes.
How much of that money could have paid for outdoor learning spaces during COVID where the children could be properly spaced?
Right.
So when you look at the deficiencies and the misdeeds of the Board of Education, it's not just about cutting corners for their job. They are making it so that these students that graduate are going to be more likely than not to be the ones on the corner.
Wow.
That rob you, your grandmother, your mother, your wife, because they do not have the ability to get a job that they can support themselves.
Mm-hmm.
This is the situation that we're in. If there are 100 schools in the city, and there are more than that, and each one of those schools has 100 ghost students, that's a heck of a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Now, when you have that amount of students, when you look at the crime stats in Baltimore City, the perpetrators of the crimes are getting younger, okay?
They are.
And they're getting more violent, younger. We are allowing, and folks, this is what I need y'all to hear me real clear on this. We are allowing a spirit of desperation and hope to seep into the spirits and the souls of these children that are not born knowing desperation. They're
Mm-hmm.
not born knowing the negativity that they will unfortunately grow up and experience. So we are allowing multiple generations of dysfunction to continue to make it seem like this is okay.
Right.
So for all of y'all that claim faith, y'all know what the Bible says. When you know better, you got to do better.
You got to do better. Mm-hmm.
To those that much is given, much is expected.
Mm-hmm.
And when you teach a child the way to go, they don't depart. They stay right there when you teach them right. Now, I'm paraphrasing because I'm trying to say this in as plain English as I possibly can. This thing with the schools is about more than the schools. This thing is about handicapping, wounding, injuring generation after generation, making sure that we continue to perpetuate the cycle of poverty, of crime, and of broken families.
Wow.
So when you just listen to the news, oh, there's another issue, another scandal with a school. No, it's another family that is disrupted. It's another community that is disrupted. It's another neighborhood that is disrupted, and it's further damaging the city.
Right.
And that's what it comes down to.
You're absolutely
Education
right.
is key. When you look at Pell Grants and scholarships and all these other things, all these tools and resources, the one surefire way to break the cycle of poverty is a quality education. Because
Absolutely.
can't nobody take that from you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's
But
right.
when we rob these children of that, when we know these children are in dysfunctional families or in generation after generation of families that are broken, of folks that have graduated without being able to read.
That's right. That's right.
And we don't do the one thing that we are given the resources to do, then the crime is not just on those we elect, it's on all us too.
Yeah. If it's one of us, it's all of us.
Exactly.
We have to break it. We have to break that cycle. Mark, I'm gonna let you get in here. Your thoughts on this matter. That's Pastor Shannon. She's always keeping it on the God side. Go ahead, Mark. Talk about it.
Yeah, you know, I agree with what the pastor's talking about. As a what they say, it takes a village to raise a child, and it's true. We as a community have to prioritize educating our children. And like you said, this goes back multiple generations. I can get my age right now, but I've seen it happen. I have family that have kids in Baltimore City schools, and it's a challenge. One of the
Right.
biggest challenges now is even getting to school. The buses, there are not enough buses. And so if you
Wow.
can't get to school and then there's no hybrid learning, those are days that they're not going to make up, so it's, I think as a community, we do have to hold each other accountable, the politicians,
Absolutely.
the businesses. We have major businesses in this city that we give tax breaks to, and we don't always support our schools the way we need to. And I think
Right.
it's not always money. It's not always money. It's the administration and logistics of making sure what happens needs to happen when it needs to happen. And if
Exactly. I
we're
certainly
not,
agree. Yes,
so
absolutely.
it's,
Okay.
yeah, I know what I'm saying.
So
So
we're
it's a multi-generational, multi-pronged problem that we cannot afford to let go on any longer. Otherwise, we're not equipped.
right.
We're just letting the situation get worse and worse. And like the pastor raised a good point. They're getting younger and
Mm-hmm.
younger.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it. My mom got mugged recently, and it was like shock.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's just like wow. And I've served on a lot of community um programs helping with the youth and everything, but
Mm-hmm.
it's rough, but we got to do better. We have to.
Yeah,
So
we do. We have to do better. Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's
We
Pastor
have
Shannon
to
said. Yeah.
we have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to give parents the tools and resources because
Absolutely. Can we?
the parent is the first teacher.
That's right. The first line.
But if you have
Right.
a parent that was also a product of the Baltimore school system that came through a broken school, they cannot teach what they don't know.
True. True.
So we really have to get back to the community school model to have not just wraparound services. I'm so tired of people talking about wraparound services and we're going to give you this and we're going to give you that. No,
Mhm.
what we need to give people is an education.
Absolutely.
What we need to give them
Absolutely.
is the tools and the resources to be able to get on their feet, stand on their feet, and stay on their feet. There are phrases that we can't even talk about in our community because we can't get there. Like, I don't know, legacy, like generational wealth. We
Right,
can't get to that
right.
because we're too busy struggling because we don't have the good job because we didn't get the good education. We're struggling to keep food on the table this week and next
Mhm.
week. We don't get to generational wealth. We don't get to half a generation of wealth. We don't get there
Yeah.
because we allow and have become desensitized and have really started to fall victim to lowered expectations. There was a thing called Black excellence. Where'd that go?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Where'd that go?
And especially during Black History Month, we need to be talking about that.
Where'd that go?
Yeah.
And Black excellence should no longer be a thing that we have to Google or study online. It should be something that we're seeing examples of every day, that our children are learning about every day, that we are demanding of our children every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There
But
are
we've lost
there's
that.
certain requirements, and
Yes.
and we have to. Okay, so I'm going to give you both a scenario. I need you to help me out here. I have a real problem with some of these parents, and I am not bashing parents. Like I said, we're here and we're talking about it. I just need some help getting some things together in my head.
Mhm.
So I'm going to give you guys a scenario. So I'm the parent of a kid. His name is Johnny Can't Read. He's in the 10th grade and he's reading on a 4th grade level. So I admit, as the mom, I'm not involved in, and I have not been, kindergarten, this child has gotten all the way to the 10th grade and he still can't read. So without blaming the school system, help me to realize that I am absolutely culpable. I need to help my child. How am I going to do that? Is it an impossible task, Pastor Shannon?
It's not impossible.
Okay.
But there needs to be an analysis done on that mom. Like, does that mom not know her child is not reading on grade level because she does not read on grade level?
Mm-hmm.
Or does that mom not know her child is not reading on grade level because she's not involved?
Right.
And those are two different scenarios. If indeed the mom is not on grade level or not able to really read to proficiency herself, then
Right.
that's a different story. And that's where that whole community school model comes in, so that the mother and the child can get the classes and the tools and the resources that they need. Because the only time you stop learning is when you're no longer breathing.
Right.
Every day is an opportunity to learn. So if we create the model that allows the parents and the children to learn together, that creates a special kind of bond. Okay, so I think that's one scenario. Now, if it's because the mother's just not involved, well, then you ask the mother very simply. If you're not involved and you out in the club and you're out getting your nails done, you're out doing whatever you're gonna do. Well, when your child hit 18, you're not gonna get that check every month for that child.
Right.
And do you want that child to be on your couch in 20 years talking about, can you buy some orange juice? Or do you want in 20 years that child to be saying, Ma, can I take you out to dinner tonight?
Absolutely. That's right.
So the things we do today need to be with an eye towards what we want to see tomorrow.
That's exactly
I told my husband and I raised 4 kids, and I said to them, listen, I'm gonna do everything that I can for you as long as I should. But there's gonna come a time when you gonna need you and you and you and you to do for us.
Right.
So I'm investing in you now so that you will pay a dividend in my senior years.
Absolutely.
But when we don't do that, when you're a senior and you're still working because your kid wasn't able to do what they needed to do,
True.
and you're trying to still support, and they've got kids, you create an impossible situation.
Right. Right.
So for a parent that doesn't know because they don't have the skill set to know, then we need to get all of them involved in some resources and some training, and get that parent to a place where they can read, so that they can check their child's homework. Now, normally, math changes from generation to generation. Science may change. The learning methods. My husband and I at one point pulled all our kids out and homeschooled them. Okay. Two of our kids are parents, so we're grandparents.
Okay.
Now, when I look at some of the things that the grandbaby brings home, I look at that and I'm like, we didn't do that like that.
Right. Exactly.
So there over time there is a progression and there is change.
Right.
But you gotta have that basic foundation. When you have that basic foundation, then you can weather those changes a little bit better and still be able to help the grandbabies with their schoolwork.
Right.
But if you don't have that basis yourself, it's never too late to change that and fix that.
Right.
And I think that's what we need to encourage folks. Don't be ashamed because you came through school and
Absolutely.
you can't read.
That's right.
All right.
That's
so
right.
Speak up
and say something. And I teach literacy. I have a business called the Joy of Literacy, and every month on Saturdays I'm at the Harriet Tubman Solidarity Center, and I am teaching reading and writing. You know, we have these adults who are texting, and it's a mile of text. You have no periods, no punctuation, and I think we are just sort of setting our kids up. My granddaughter does that.
Absolutely.
And I tell her all the time, if you text grandma, you need to use punctuation or I'm not going to read it.
You have to text me in the English that it would be written down in a book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because your shorthand,
that text,
language,
yeah.
I don't know if that's for convenience or because you're not being taught.
Right.
And we have to know the difference.
I want you to text EDER, not EDA. That's what I want you to do. That's Mark. You want to get in on this part of the conversation?
Right. No, you raise an interesting point. I think it's both, because the younger people, they have that's a new. It's texting things a new language. So part of it is out of convenience, but part of it is they're not even writing in cursive anymore. Like there's a lot of things.
Right.
And that's the
and what are we going to do? How are they going to know how to sign a check?
What's a check?
Right.
Exactly. Because they're going to pay it online.
I don't know. It is difficult to discern, because some things are going away. They may not need to know because everything is becoming digitized now. So some of it, our world is changing, and then some of it, I'm a proponent of learning the fundamentals. So I think that they should learn to still write in script for cursive.
I agree.
Right.
As a fundamental skill. Now, even though we may not use it, but still, that's just how
I think they need to know.
I think children need to be taught finance and how to balance a checkbook.
Absolutely.
Is.
Right.
I think handwriting and penmanship still needs to be taught in school.
It does.
When you make your first $1 million, you need to know how to print, how to, you know, which signature is.
Exactly.
That script, and you got to learn that. So you got to get the penmanship together.
Absolutely.
I mean, there things change, yes, but some of the foundational basics still remain, and they need to be taught. And I think we've lost sight of a lot of it.
Absolutely.
Right. And that's
And
why
I
I
think
was
if go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know, even as us as parents, we get busy, but we have to prioritize being involved, going to the school board meetings, doing that hard work of making sure those things still happen. Because otherwise, I think what happens is they run the city without us, and then everything is kind of just has been spiraling generation after generation.
And it is.
Absolutely.
And it is.
You know, I was never that parent that thought I would homeschool my kids.
Right.
I was that parent that was raised by a mom that said, you will graduate, you will go to college, you will get an advanced degree, you will get a
Absolutely.
good job.
That's
You
right.
will send your children to school, and they will do the same thing that I'm telling you you're going to do. And that was the plan for a long time. When our oldest was in middle school, she came home and she was upset about an argument. A mom came into school, had an argument with the nurse, and then had a fight with the principal. My daughter was upset, and I said, well, what was it about? She said, I don't know, but my friend, like, one of the girls said her mom came in because she was mad. This is middle school. Keep that in mind. She was mad because they wouldn't let her daughter have her baby shower during lunch with her friends.
Wow.
And I said, she wouldn't do what now?
Inappropriate.
So what else is going on here?
Absolutely.
And that's how we made the decision. We tried private school. 4 sets of tuition was a little bit difficult. Did the numbers and the math.
Mm-hmm.
I said, somebody stay home.
Right.
Homeschool is cheaper than tuition times 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's right. That's right.
Fortunately for us, my mom had a background in education, was a teacher.
Okay.
So she was able to really help us and do that, or I would not have been able to do it. But the point is, most parents do not have that option. So,
Okay.
and the sad thing is, we should not have to make that option. We should trust that when we pay our taxes and they go to the state, and the state sends the money back to the city, that it's being appropriately spent to actually educate the children.
Right. Right.
To actually uphold standards and push all of the students for excellence. And it's just not happening.
It's just not happening. I am a product of Baltimore City Schools. I went to Booker T. Washington, Henry Highland, whatever it is, Henry Highland Garnet. I went to Carver High School, and then I just completed my master's degree December 4th. But thank you. I did not, when I graduated from Carver, I did not go immediately to college. I was like, I don't want to go. I got a great job at a nonprofit organization. I was making all this money. And then I went to a law firm and I was making like top dollar. So I was like, I don't need to go to college. But then, you know, as the years went by, like that's a lot of hard work when you work for attorneys. And I was like, no. And then I got a certified paralegal. And then I was like, no, I think I'm going to like go in another direction. Yeah, I have a master's in business administration, public health, you know. So I am very, very proud of like the kids in my family, the young people. They're doing what they're supposed to do, and they're making sure, you know, lots of times I'll ask people, well, you know, have you been to a PTA meeting at your child's school, you know?
Why?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And folks will ask you why.
Yeah,
because they come home with homework. I see that they're doing it. They take it back. Why?
Right. Because you need to have a visible presence in that school, just in case, so that you can say with authority, I know that this is going on, you know, at the school. My granddaughter I love her school. And their parents there every day. You know, I go in the morning sometimes just to like show my face, you know. I want to make sure, you know, her mother works nights, so she's sleeping. So I want to make sure. I want to go in that school. Okay, so I'm here. Dad's there sometimes. Like I need to go in there and make sure. We have to be fully vested in these kids. We do. You know, I think sometimes they may not be you know, as enthusiastic as they should about going to school.
When we abdicate our authority to folks that do not feel as vested in these little people as we do, that's where the problem comes in.
Mm-hmm.
It's human nature. If you know you get to work, you're supposed to be at work at 8 o'clock, and you know lunch is at noon, and you're done with lunch at 1, and you leave the day at 5, but your boss is not always there, so lunch might be a little early,
Mm-hmm.
and it might last a little longer. And you might be already on the highway at 5 o'clock when you're supposed to just be leaving.
Right.
It's human nature. So when we put ourselves in a situation in mass, as we've done in Baltimore City, to allow human nature to have autonomy and authority over the future of our children without vetting the better angels of those that are supposed to be running the schools.
That's right. Who had charge over?
Yeah,
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna wrap it up. I am so sorry I was a bit late with this downtown traffic, but this is what we're gonna do, Pastor Shannon. We're gonna come back in 2 weeks,
Okay.
and we're gonna continue this conversation because I want to hear what both you and Mark have to say about these parents. Folks get really upset when we try to hold these parents accountable.
They
You know,
do, but you know what? Nobody wants to hear when they're messing up. Everybody wants to hear when they're doing real good.
such a great
But
job.
I will tell you this: in 2 weeks, I'll be able to talk to you about a couple of things. We're working on legislation for a fully elected school board. We're working
Yes.
on legislation for the money to follow the students.
Absolutely.
We're working on legislation for term limits and recall options here in the city as well.
Absolutely.
Because for those that don't want to just take it amongst themselves and upon themselves to do the right thing, we're going to put the legislation in place to help them out.
Absolutely. That's right. Thank you so much, Pastor Shannon. Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much. So in 2 weeks, Mark, we'll be back, okay?
Okay, I'll come back and have that conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is a wrap. Conversations with JoyB. See you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.